Most people know that having an emergency fund is important for when the worst happens, but what about all the times when you need a little extra money that aren't real emergencies? I'll show you how I'm saving for budget blips coming up next. Welcome back to Ready Budget Go. My name is Drew, and on this channel we talk about cash budgeting, saving money, and achieving our financial goals. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Today I want to talk about savings. I want to talk about emergency savings for a little bit, but I also want to talk about another kind of savings that I want to start for things that aren't really emergencies, but that just come up in a month. So, for example, this last month, I had an unexpected pharmaceutical expense of nearly $300, which was far more than what I had budgeted. I had one prescription that was a one-time fill that I hadn't budgeted for, and my pharmacy also switched me from a 30-day supply to a 90-day supply for the prescriptions that I get filled every month. I didn't know that was coming, and I'm not entirely upset that the pharmacy did it. It's fewer trips that I have to make to get refills, but I didn't know that it was coming. So it kind of threw a wrench into my January budget a little bit. So it's not an emergency, and I don't really want to tap my emergency fund, but also having to reshuffle my entire month's budget when things like that happen is kind of a pain. So what I decided to do is to create a BLIP fund. And a blip is for any of those things that just come up in your budget where it's not an emergency, but it's unplanned. So for me, an emergency is something major. That is, I lost my job, or somebody got really sick, or heaven forbid there was a death in the family and I need to go to a funeral or what have you. So those are real emergencies. Those tend to last a lot longer. They have farther reaching implications. You may not be working for a while, may not have any income for a while, may have to book last minute travel, whatever it is. So to me, those are real emergencies. But there's also things that happen in our budget that, it's not a life or death emergency, but we want to have the money available there to pay for it. And I don't necessarily want to take it out of my emergency fund because I want to feel like my emergency fund is still there. So that's where the blip came in. Now, before we move on to that, I just want to say that in terms of an emergency fund, for me, I've decided that I need about 3 months worth of living expenses, and I'm talking about minimal living expenses, in order to feel like I am protected in case the worst happens. So for me, that is about $12,000. I have a worksheet that goes over all of the different possible spending categories, or most of them anyway. These will apply to most people. They don't all apply to me. Probably not all of them will apply to you, but I filled out the ones that I felt I needed, and then I multiplied by 3 for 3 months, added in a buffer, and I came up with $12,000. So that's what I've been working toward. Both this emergency fund builder and this tracker are available in my Etsy shop. I'm almost fully funded. When I started tracking my spending and budgeting back in October, I had about half of it already saved. This has come in the last 3 months, so I'm really proud of the progress, and I've only got 2 more sections to fill in, and I'll be fully funded. But I also want to start working on my BLIP fund, and my BLIP fund I have made a new tracker for, and so I am going to open that up here. This is actually a full-page spread, so I'll slide this over. So I've got a tracker here to indicate, the date and the saved amount and the balance. And then I've also got a tracker to graphically represent how far along I am. Now, for me, I put money into my savings account automatically twice a month. I save $205 on the first of the month and the 16th of the month. That's about when my paychecks fall. So I feel like for me, the BLIP fund needs to be about $2,400 just to catch anything that happens inside of a month that isn't a real emergency. If it's more than $2,400, by then it's probably an emergency and I need to go into the bigger emergency fund. But this will catch all of the smaller things. And I'm expecting that I will have to tap this fund far more frequently, but if I do end up having to take money from the BLIP fund, it's just going to mean that that's my priority to get that money replaced before I move on to other goals. I was originally going to save this for doing after I fully funded my emergency fund, but I'm so close with that emergency fund And I really do want to get started on this because I don't want my progress on the emergency fund to be derailed by any more blips. So I've decided to do both at the same time. And these are available on my Etsy shop. They're two different products, but I'll link both of them down below. When you get the BLIP Fund, it is a digital download. You get one that you can print out where the hole punches can go on the right, whether you use a disc binder like this or a 3-ring or whatever it is. So one where they can go on the right and another where they can go on the left. It's up to you. I decided that for this one, I wanted to be able to look at the whole spread at once. So I punched this on the left and this on the right. The savings tracker is the same way. If you get the savings tracker, it's a digital download. You will get one for punching on the left and another that's offset to the left to punch on the right. So we're going to start the BLIP Fund, and I am going to grab out a pen here, and we're going to say that this is the BLIP Fund. And of course, BLIP, as it says here, stands for break, lock, if prompted. And so if something comes up where you need money out of this fund, it's kind of guilt-free. It's unanticipated, but it is a need. And so you just transfer the money out and then you replace it as soon as you can. So it's the BLIP Fund. I'm starting with 0 because right now, everything that I've been transferring into my savings account has gone into my emergency save. My savings account is sort of an intermediate step. I have 2 savings accounts. So it goes into what is going to be this account first, and then I vault it in my emergency fund. I want that emergency fund to be a little bit more difficult to tap just because I don't want to have the temptation of whipping out a debit card or transferring money over to checking just to blow it. So for me, that's what works best. I can get to that money if I need to, but short term, I probably would put something on a credit card and then use the emergency fund to pay it off if I did have a real emergency. So I'm going to say that the first one is going to be 2-1. Now the money will come out of my account on the 3rd because the 1st was a Saturday, but at any rate. So we're going to say this is going to be $205, and the new balance will be $205. Okay, and I'm going to put in the zeros because there will be interest here. This account doesn't earn as much interest as my high yield savings where my emergency fund lives, but it is a lot more liquid. It is a lot easier to access money out of this account. So I'm willing to pay the little bit of interest penalty for the convenience. Okay, so I've got that recorded here. Now I am going to color because that's always the fun part, and I am actually terrible at coloring. But I'm going to color first. I'll color the shackle. And while I do that, this isn't going to stay. I'll just put it up here. And while I do that, I'm just going to share that, originally, actually, I'm going to use the other tip for this. Originally, my plan was to have my emergency fund fully funded by the end of April and then move on to this. But it's looking like I will be able to get that emergency fund fully funded by the end of March. At least I hope so. So I'm getting kind of a jump on this one. I may have more expenses coming up, as I mentioned in my last budget check-in, which would have published this past weekend. I am moving to a new place. I've also got a sale going on in my Etsy shop, 30% off all physical products, so items that I ship to you, just so I don't have to move as much. So that might affect how quickly I'm able to do the savings in here, but I at least want to get a start, right? That is the important thing to me. And then actually, I'm going to tidy these up a little bit. I am not the best at coloring. It's just never been something that I've been good at. I don't have the fine motor control in my hands, so I tend to color outside the lines, but I feel like these are big enough that these lines are thick enough. That's not going to be as much of an issue. Okay, and then for the face, I am going to mark off in pencil because we're going to do 200. Oh, I should write that in here, that each segment for me is worth $200. There are 12, and I want about $2,400, so each one will be 200. This is a pencil, and I'm just going to mark in here about halfway on each line. Doesn't have to be exact. That's fine. Okay. And this is a drafting ruler. If you use straight edges or if you use rulers a lot, I strongly recommend getting a drafting ruler because they have this handle on them, so they're super easy to pick up. You don't have to mess with it trying to grab it by the edge. You can just pick it up like this. Okay, So the first color in here, I have these written down, is going to be 335, which is dark green. Whoops. And I'm going to use the chisel tip again. I will come in and fine tune it later. These markers do bleed. They're alcohol based, which is why I put the protective sheet behind it, the plastic. Okay. So that's a little thicker than I wanted, but like I say, it doesn't really matter. So that's the first section done. I am also going to color in the rim here. I'm going to do that in, I think, red. We'll do it in kind of this dark red. No, we'll do it in a bright red. So this fund will take me about, let's see, about, well, $400, so about 6 months, and that's assuming that I don't accelerate it by putting in any of the other money into it once my emergency fund is fully funded. My second priority is to fully fund my, or I shouldn't say my second, but my other priority this year is to fully fund my Roth IRA. I have not contributed to it yet so far this year because I want to make sure that my emergency fund is fully funded first. I don't want to contribute to my Roth IRA with money that should be in my emergency fund and then have to take it out of my Roth IRA, which you can do with no penalty. But once you take it out of your Roth IRA, you lose that capacity for the year, I believe. So I want to be sure that when I'm putting money in my Roth IRA that I fully intend to keep it in there for a good long while. So, and I am not a financial advisor, so if you have questions about Roth IRAs, talk to a CFP, talk to your broker, talk to someone who's qualified to dispense advice. Just a little disclaimer there. Okay, so there is my lock, and we've got one of the segments filled out, and so we're on our way. So again, this tracker and this tracker are both available in my Etsy shop. I will link them down below. You get, when you buy the tracker, you get one to print on each side of the page if you want, or each side of the notebook if you want. And then, like I say, this should take about 6 months, but maybe we can accelerate that. We'll see how it looks when I get to the end of the emergency fund. But for now, expect to see this twice a month, probably in my weekly check-ins. And I'm looking forward to getting this fully funded so that I can better anticipate or better accommodate any of the blips that happen in life with our budgets. So I do want to thank you for spending some time with me today and for watching through to the end of the video. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below, subscribe if you're new, and share with your friends. Until I see you in the next one, take care.